Good evening, everyone. Good afternoon, those who are on the West Coast. Before I begin, I'd like to say to all those of us who have been celebrating the high holidays, the Jewish New Year this week, Shana Tova. And many thanks to each of you who are joining us tonight on the fourth roundtable this year. Please feel free to speak your mind. We are among our close friends and partners. And citing the President of the United States, but not the current one, I'd like to cite President Franklin Roosevelt. We have nothing to fear but fear itself, at least on this particular Zoom. I'd only rephrase it by saying that the more we succumb to fear at this stage, the more fear will be there to come down the road. And that's the nature of the beast that some of us are familiar with from back home. We live in a country where a large and still quite powerful part of its society is fighting back against fear for our First Amendment rights and against the Putinization of our system, with varying degrees of success. And yes, we are a very tiny fraction of American society and of its immigrants, but our work over many years, including under the first Trump administration, is part of this fight back against fear domestically and internationally. So, over the course of 2 weeks, from September 8 to 18, our Russian-speaking community council in New York and our association from coast to coast took part once again in the National Refugee Advocacy Days organized annually by We Are All America. Our team was in several delegations from Oregon to Georgia to Michigan to New Jersey and of course New York, where we co-led the delegation as accompaniers with our partners from Afghans for a Better Tomorrow and African Communities Together. This year, all meetings were held remotely for obvious security reasons. And I'd like to list the goals of the meetings because the order in which they were put by the coalition accurately reflects our current realities. First goal was to empower our refugees and asylum-seeking folks to speak with congressional offices. And that was the main goal. And let me state right away that it was a two-way street, even though it was not explicit, but our meetings also indirectly helped empower, in my opinion, our pro-immigrant legislators in Congress by showing our support and attention to their own struggle. Our second goal was to inform them of the coalition's priorities and build bipartisan support. And the third and the last was to push for specific solutions, granted with much less expectation of success than the first two of the goals. And we all know that, frankly, no pro-immigrant bills will be passed under the current majority. So these meetings were more of a strategic work toward a more distant future. Now, it's far from the first time that we've done legislative advocacy. We actually have done it now and then from about the time of our founding in 2012, both individually and in coalitions on immigration and Russia's human rights, in Congress, as well as with city and state legislators in New York. So we have things to remember, but this year's meetings were not like any previous ones that were at the times way more successful in terms of being able to advance specific legislation. The difference this year is that I believe we are literally sitting on the verge of possible destruction of checks and balances and of the constitutional supremacy of Congress in making laws. Destruction of a system that has worked for nearly 250 years for the benefit of this country and those fleeing persecution. And that was the envy of the world. We are reading daily about the executive violating laws passed by Congress, violating them with impunity, about congressional majority ignoring these violations, and many courts, including the highest court of the land, finding all this to be legal and constitutional. And we also read daily about government threats against civil society. So I don't want to sound overly dramatic, but we all remember these meetings in the future as either our form of support for the small d Democrats from both parties in Congress, who eventually prevailed in the defense of our democracy and restored the balance of power, or as our first congressional meeting of the time of transition to a whole different system, not unlike ancient Romans in transition from republic to the rule of Caesars. In this light, it's important to make note of who met with us this time and who did not. I won't go through the entire list, especially since legislators were targeted very selectively this year. But I'd like to comment in particular the staffers of those Congress members who met with us, including Senator Peters in Michigan, who is the ranking member that is the most senior Democrat on the Homeland Security Committee. Both senators from Oregon, Merkley and Wyden, who are the ranking members of the Budget and the Finance Committees, respectively. Senators from Georgia, Ossoff and Warnock, senators from New Jersey, Kim and Booker, and last but far from least, my very own New York Senator Gillibrand, who is the ranking member of the Committee of the Aging. Those of us who took part in these meetings will soon share their experiences and thoughts about this. And I'd like to emphasize that all of our legislative advocacy since 2012 is conducted on a volunteer basis, which is frankly, and it's far from the first time that I will say this, frankly, is due to persistent lack of equal opportunity for our people in immigration funding, in good times and in bad times, and also due to the political bent of the funding sources within the Russian diaspora that do not fund disadvantaged groups and do not fund intergroup coalitions. Now, speaking of coalitions, we've been part of a number of them in New York, nationally and internationally since our beginning. Some of them are now defunct or exist on paper only. Some went out of business without notice. The job of sustaining, let alone developing and expanding a coalition and keeping it relevant to the changing circumstances is one of the most complex, as there are always divergent interests internally and the politics of divide and rule from the outside, including from some of the funders in our own field. So I'm really excited that we are part of We Are All America, which is more enduring, and not least because it's more inclusive and equitable in practice than others I've seen. All this is due to the enormous work of the small team, and now I'm delighted to introduce Fatima Saidi, who along with Nedra Sumik bears the brunt of this highly sophisticated and demanding work. Fatima is the head of We Are All America and a refugee who has traveled a remarkable path. She was born in Afghanistan in a village from which her family soon had to seek refuge and move to Pakistan. And let us all be conscious of the fact that our own folks hail from the pieces of the former empire whose rulers, shortly before it crumbled, intervened in Afghanistan, leading to many deaths and refugee flows before others came in their place and did their part of the damage. Back to Fatima, just 12 years ago, she came to the US as an international student. She graduated from Bates College in Political Science and Religious Studies. She then worked at the mayor's office in Boston, afterwards at the Maine Immigrant Rights Coalition, before becoming the national campaign director of We Are All America. But what's most valuable, always and ever, she is an amazingly reliable friend to me and to all of us, making sure that we are never excluded from any of its activities. So please welcome Fatima to our circle.
Thank you so very much. I am honored and I am so grateful to be invited to your community and a place that I can come together and see. And I'm just so grateful. Today I spent some time with Yuliya and we were actually talking at the Refugee Matter, which is a broadcast, and we talk about refugee matters. What's happening in our country and things. We discussed about what does it mean to be an American, what took us to become an American. And I think having a conversation about our advocacy days is very timely to what does it mean to be an American and why are we doing the work we are doing. And today I discuss about how whenever I close my eyes and I see white nationalists or extremist in America reminds me of the Taliban, and that really scares me and what's happening. And I'm sure that I'm not alone. A lot of the people who have journeyed here, come here, immigrant, and many of you probably feel the same way about what is coming to America and what's happening in a country that I came here in 2012, from 2012 till now. I don't know, there are parts of America I love, there are parts of America I'm scared, and it's a complicated feeling. So thank you for joining me in this journey. Thank you for being a part of this movement. And your organization has been really a big part of this advocacy day. So I want to take that opportunity to thank each one of you. And Dmitri has been a dear friend to me too. In the past 2 years, we have discussed about so many things. And he is one of the people that we reach out if there is something that we need to discuss or if we need someone. So thank you so much. This advocacy days has been a labor of love and pain. A lot of many of the reason is because of the policies that we were trying to ask. We had 4 policy asks. So the first policy ask was restoring and strengthening US RAP, or the refugee program. One of that, as you know, when Donald Trump became the president, he basically stopped the refugee resettlement program, and there was supposed to be a report 90 days into it, We are now almost 7 months into it, and there is no report coming. So we are still waiting, and the hope is that that would be restored and strengthened. The other one was defending asylum in due process, because for us, those two go hand in hand. And it seems that both of those are being undermined. The one that was very tricky for us was asking for protection for TPS. I know that TPS is not, it's under the White House and the jurisdiction of the president, but at the same time, that was one of the things that we wanted the Congress to step in and to have discussion. The truth was that as we were preparing for our advocacy days, there were 7 countries that lost their TPS. Syria was the latest that happened during our advocacy days, that Syria is still in war, and people from Syria who came here was eligible for TPS for almost 10 plus years for the past, and it's gone overnight. And there is around, I believe, over 200,000 people that became undocumented just overnight by the decision. The last one was a discriminatory travel ban. This has been happening mostly, targeting Muslim countries and African countries. So that was one of the things that has affected a lot of our community members, people who are a student. My country, my former country, Afghanistan, is on the ban. I came as an international student. If that happened today, I would not be eligible to come, even though in Afghanistan, schools are banned for girls. America is doing exactly the same thing, not allowing students to come. It's almost shocking for me to think that Afghan girls are being punished just based on their nationality and not receiving the education that they desperately needs. As Dmitri talked about, this year, after a lot of requests from the community, we moved it virtual. So all the meetings were virtual, except I think there was 2 or 3 meetings that was in person. But all meetings are virtual. The advocacy days were supposed to be 1 week, but people went on and there are still meetings. So which I'm very grateful and proud. Over 300 people participated. We collaborated, like your organization, there was 30 other organizations, more than 30 other organizations across America that we worked with. We had 93 meetings as of now, and it's probably increasing as the new numbers are coming in. We had a meeting with 31 different state representatives. So many, and I'm not, many of the representatives, even the ones that Dmitri mentioned, some of them are the ones that are already on board with us. They believe all of these things. They want to, things. So it was really showing gratitude, and just thinking the other ones might have been, for example, they didn't know if they should do it, or is this worth it? And those are the ones we are really targeting. For us, it doesn't matter if they're Republican, Democrats. We just want to have a meeting with them and tell what's happening to our community. And also tell them that, immigration, if being anti-immigration will cost America a lot of money. So it's going to be, I had a professor that was saying racism is very expensive. So that's the same concept that is happening now. And there's a lot of anti-immigrant come from that kind of place that is, it's just either they say it's too expensive or it just don't like the color of people's skin. So we have a lot of attachments that we share to offices, and after emails that once we meet, a lot of our community members are continuing to have meetings, with ongoing meetings, share data, share information. And I'm gonna share our website here in the chat.
Wonderful. Thank you for being with us tonight. Let's go and share some of the impressions and thoughts from the folks that have been taking part in the meetings. And I would like to start from the West Coast, from Alex Borochkin, who is in Portland and had meetings with 2 senators, I believe.
Okay. Hi all. In Oregon, we have met with Senator Jeff Merkley staff and Ron Wyden staff. They all welcome immigrants, and mostly they support our policy asks. But they said that today can little be done because of democratic little representation in the U.S. Congress, both in Senate and House of Representatives. They continue to monitor the situation with immigrants, and they also monitor international situation, in particular in Russia. I shared policy asks from We Are All America organization, but also since I know a good situation in Russia, I also informed them about what's happening right now, and they confirmed that they also monitor the situation. And they said that deportations of Russian asylum seekers directly in Russia is unacceptable, even if they lost their asylum application in court, if denied asylum application in court. This is unacceptable. Also, they advised us to instruct asylum seekers or other immigrants on different statuses to ask senators for help if they need it, but use their attorney to do that. So we discuss this matter with the attorney, and then attorney will express their concerns in legal way and in short time with senators. So in Oregon, they support immigrants and provide legal assistance and not much violations of rights right now. Most migrants are protected.
Thank you, Alex. And a couple of things I think is very important that with We Are All America we go, and there is an understanding that there is a shared program which is hugely important, which is probably 95% of what we present. And there is, of course, the concerns of our folks that do not have space to express them elsewhere and don't have an easy access to any of those offices outside of these coalition visits. So we really appreciate that. And it's important that in Portland, with Alex and Tanika, we have a strong group that has been participating in these meetings not the first year, and continuing to represent us there with dignity and honor. So maybe we'll go to the Midwest. Mark would like to share a couple of thoughts from the meeting with Senator Peters, I believe he had. Mark Zilberman, a board member in Michigan and our representative there.
Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. My name is Mark, and I live in Michigan, in Metro Detroit, kind of in the middle of all the actions in Michigan. So we had meetings in Michigan, a few meetings, and meetings were organized by Rose Catherine Mayan. Rose came from South Sudan, and she was a refugee Congress delegate for Michigan. She organized the group of people from Michigan, a different place in Michigan. Majority of people turns out to be from Grand Rapids, because she stayed in Grand Rapids. A few other members of our group came from Grand Rapids. Whenever we start sharing our experiences as refugees in the past, we realize everybody has a story, and the stories, some stories are, heartbreaking stories. One lady told about her experience related to Afghanistan. She was working for many years in defense industry. She was part of CIA and FBI. And she was part of the whole thing when the United States Army was leaving Afghanistan. And that she got acquainted with a family of Afghanistan people who were promised to come to the United States. It didn't happen. She felt kind of obligated to be part of the solution to bring that family she was very closely attached to the United States. Didn't happen to the level when she told about her story was really heartbroken story. Rose set up the meeting with staff from Gary Peters' office. Gary Peters could not join us. 3 assistants were part of discussions. We shared our stories and our concern related to TPS, asylum program, and situation with refugees taking place in this country in general. So their response was pretty good, I would say pretty positive. I would say that the whole meeting was pretty much kind of emphasized interest from many people from Michigan and from different communities who are going through the limbo today in refugees or asking for asylum. We'll see how the whole thing is going to continue. I hope that group of people will get together, will keep working in Michigan.
Thank you, Mark. I think it's hugely important that this year we had Michigan included, which doesn't have a huge Russian, Ukrainian, or former Soviet community, although has some historic folks that we all remember who lived there and left a mark, including Joseph Brodsky. And it's hugely important to continue taking part in those meetings in Michigan whenever they happen. And I think let's go south. And before I give the floor to Mariia, I want kind of, if my technical prowess will allow me, I want to kind of boast of our publicity, newly found publicity for her and thus for us by proxy. I will share about her refugee experience, and maybe she would even mention a couple of her points from there. We also had Mariia taking part in We Are All America Instagram discussion and videos on the International Day of Peace. Okay.
Thank you so much, Dmitri. Good evening, everyone. I do apologize. I'm not able to use my camera. I had the honor of participating in We Are All America National Refugee Advocacy Days as a part of the Georgia delegation, and with my colleagues from New American Pathways. I represented the American Russian Speaking Association for Civil and Human Rights, and also as I'm serving as a Council Advisory Member, I represented the Coalition of Refugee Service Agencies in Georgia. For me, participating in these advocacy days was pretty sensitive because myself, I am a Ukrainian humanitarian parolee, and to present Russian-speaking association at the beginning, I would need to explain that this association stands firmly against Russia's war and fully supports Ukraine and displaced Ukrainians. It was pretty important to mention that because in one meeting I had another Ukrainian person participated, and I felt that stress on his speeches when he mentioned that I'm representing the American Russian Speaking Association, but I had an honor to do that. As Dmitri mentioned that I met with Senator John Ossoff, Senator Raphael Warnock, and Representative Hank Johnson During our meetings with Senator Rosov, Senator Warnock, and Representative Hank Johnson, we heard clear support for refugees' protections. They emphasized that families deserve stability instead of living in constant uncertainty. The United States must applaud non-refoulement and not send people back to persecution, torture, or war. Backlogs and delays in immigration processing must be reduced. And the contributions of Ukrainians and other refugees communities in Georgia are recognized and valued. When I do advocacy with senators in Georgia, I always try to bring people with different stories. How do they contribute to the economy for the country, bring in the real stories. And our senators made it clear that these are issues requiring federal solutions and that our concerns are being heard. In my remarks, I raised 3 priorities: temporary protected status, asylum, Ukrainian humanitarian parole, and of course, I also highlighted broader concerns of Russians' US deportations to countries where returnees face interrogations, torture, or forced mobilization, prolonged detention without legal support, sometimes pushing people into self-deportation, and severe processing delays that keep families in uncertainty. Another key aspect of these advocacy days was the diversity of partners who joined us. We met alongside Afghan and African community groups, local immigrants serving nonprofits, and faith leaders. Their presence showed Congress that refugee protection is not the issue of one nationality, it is a shared national cause. For our community, this means we are part of a broader movement. These alliances amplify our voice, connect us with new partners, lawyers, journalists, funders, and ensure that Ukrainians, Russians, and Belarusians and others in our network are woven into the larger refugee rights agenda in the United States. That's it for my report. Thank you again, Dmitri, for showing my open aid on Journal Constitution to highlight our current situation with all humanitarian parolees, not only mentioning Ukrainians. I do not separate humanitarian parolees. Most of the employment authorization documents which Ukrainians applied for were never approved for being extended. So people slightly send it to be self-silent deported because of not receiving proper documents to be able to continue working in the country.
The situation with parole suspension is horrific, of course, and I just wanted to briefly draw attention to one bill that there is in Congress, but it has, I think, as slim chances of passing as all the other good things that we've advocating for in this particular Congress, the Ukrainian Adjustment Act, which I think has only 9 co-sponsors, but I think we should watch on what will be happening with it now and later, because in many ways it reflects those aspirations that Mariia expressed in her petition online, even though it's just for Ukrainian and for Ukrainians, and Mariia's petition was for all parolees. It's just something I wanted to draw your attention to. And I would like us all now to move to New Jersey and New York as well, because Yuliya has participated in both places. And she will share with us her thoughts and impressions and comments. I also want to share something in which both Yuliya and Fatima participated at the conversation on citizenship today, on the complex reality of American citizenship, where she represented us, our organization, in this very important conversation.
I will first talk about, I guess, our conversation with New Jersey Senate officers. We did not meet with senators themselves. We met with representatives from their offices, but both senators, Senator Andrew Kim and Cory Booker, are great supporters of our cause. They are both Democratic senators. They support and champion refugees and immigrants. Cory Booker has pretty much spent his entire career trying to help people. He's actually one of the senators I admire the most. I have followed his career a little bit, and they pledged their full support. His name is not on some of those bills just because right now they're not looking for any more Democratic senators to join, to put their names on them, but Republicans. Some of the issues we have raised is how do we make sure that there are some kind of guardrails and whatever Congress is actually able to pass will not be just annulled by a whim of one person who is our current president. And that is, of course, a very grave concern for everybody in the Senate, and they are trying to do something about it. But they said they're having problems securing any bipartisanship, any type of agreement with their colleagues from the other side of the aisle. Even Senator Kim, who is usually known for being able to speak, he is more moderate, and he is known for being able to create alliances with other, members of Senate from the Republican side. Unfortunately, right now, they seem scared. They are scared to go along with any democratic initiatives. And that is quite scary to me, honestly, to hear that being said by members of staff of congressmen. We do have full democratic support for our causes, definitely, and I truly believe that they will try to do whatever they can. And honestly, I got the same exact expression when I talk with representatives from the New York State as when I did with the New Jersey State.
I just pasted in the chat my little summary of what I found important from the New York part. It's one pager. Feel free to read it when you have time. I just only want to say that what was striking, or at least what I'd like to draw attention, is that in New York, obviously, there is the city and Long Island, which is the traditional mainstay of pro-immigrant advocacy for many years, and there is the upstate, which is viewed as more conservative. So most of our meetings were with upstate folks, and half of them were newly elected, just in their first term. And these were fresh people, or at least their staffers, and these were the best meetings in my experience. And there is a sense that some Democrats, or many influential Democrats, or their advisors, their consultants, or both, feel that somehow they burned their fingers on immigration, and somehow this is something that was the cause of the present predicament. That's something to just think through. But Irina was also with us at the meetings, and she was at one meeting that I had to skip, which was with Congressman Grace Meng in Queens, Irina Kilimnik, one of our leaders of the Russian-speaking community council in Brooklyn.
Yes, hi, how are you doing? My name is Irina Kilimnik, and I'm an immigrant and refugee. Good evening to everyone. We didn't have the meeting with the representative Meng herself, but there was a staffer who was actually saying that, it is that's true that Representative Meng is sponsoring all the 3 bills, that she is all for what we asked. okay? And, they're all doing the same thing. They're trying to build some kind of consensus, some kind of bipartisan movement, something, but doesn't work. They are all for immigrants and for refugees. It was very nice, but at the same time, I was actually kind of very down after all those meetings, because at least to me I don't know, that's how I felt. They can't do anything. They really can't do anything. So I was thinking again, and that was one of the questions maybe wrongly posted to those staffers, if there is a way for us to help them.
Thank you everyone who shared their thoughts and impressions. If anyone else would like to say something, whether in English or in Russian, maybe about their interest in joining these congressional meetings in the future, or their own experience of meeting and advocating for anything, or just meeting their representatives. We have here Lena, who is our new guest in New York, and we have Inna Subotin here, who is our long-standing participant in many actions and events and rallies. And we have Victor, who is in Florida and is also a recent refugee from Russia, Azali. Thank you for joining us.
I wanted to say thank you. Thank you for the stories. This is very meaningful for me to sit and hear what you're hearing, what works, what doesn't. Nothing new. In every meeting I go through, all of them for me is like listening to people, what is. But as you all mentioned, it's true. I think a lot of Democrats are either scared or just overwhelmed with all the other things happening. But we have to keep reminding them. So I hope that you keep continuing sending emails, keep asking them about the things, even phone calls. I call my representatives all the time, just randomly. If I have a couple minutes, I just call and say, hey, we discuss about this bill. Hey, we discuss about this policy. What's your stand? Or if there is something I don't like, I just call them and say, that's harmful to me and my community, and I'm a taxpayer living in your state, and something that is local. We have to localize our issues as much as possible, that we are not just numbers. All their policies that they are passing, people like all of us, including the people in this circle, are being affected. So again, thank you so very much. Thank you, Dmitri, inviting me, and I hope you all have a wonderful Friday tomorrow and weekend. So thank you.
You too. Thank you for being with us.